Wilson Mburu, and this is KTN Prime.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Nancy Kachungera, and this evening our sign language interpreter is William Silla.
Now, as we're going to make it a tradition here on KTN Prime, we're starting tonight on an image that will represent what we'll be talking about, and it's all about uniqueness. The picture that you see, or you're going to see on your screen, there is the picture. The picture that you see represents what Nairobi is, a unique city. It is the only city in the world that has a national park in its backyard.
That's right. And it was actually officially opened in 1946. That's a long time ago. It was the very first park to be established in Kenya. That's the Nairobi National Park. And I think we've definitely seen that image before. Amazing. You can see a giraffe with skyscrapers in the background. Beautiful.
So the point of that image is embrace your uniqueness. It appears that Kenyan parents will have to stay home with their school-going children for a while longer after talks aimed at ending the teachers' strike collapsed this evening.
The Kenya National Union of Teachers walked out of a meeting with the Labour Cabinet Secretary Kazungu Kambi, the Education Cabinet Secretary Professor Jacob Kaimenyi, and the Teachers Service Commission.
KTN's Rita Tinina has those details.
As the teachers' strike entered the second day, the government moved to try and end the strike. Labour Cabinet Secretary Kazungu Kambi and his education counterpart Professor Jacob Kaimenyi met NAT officials led by Chairman Muzonzili and TSC Secretary Gabriel Longobon and his team. The talks lasted for over 7 hours, but failed to unlock the teachers' salary stalemate, with union officials walking out of the meeting.
We have not come out with the component that we needed.
The government enhanced the existing allowances and introduced new ones.
NAT, which had initially sought a 300% pay increase, reviewed the demand to a 150% pay increase. At the start of the meeting, the union had wanted the TSC to table a 50 to 60% pay increase it had offered, but later withdrew last year.
Tulikuwa tunatarajia hapa leo waseme kwamba hatuna fedha nyingi, lakini tunaregesha yale makadirio ya kwanza ya 50 to 60% salary increase.
The government, which maintains the demands by teachers are unachievable, steered clear of the salary issue, only dwelling on allowances.
But what has been given to us on the table is not an offer which could make us to call off the strike.
Kwa serikali jukumu ni lao. Kusema kwamba hawana fedha na wafanyikazi wengine wa serikali wanapata fedha hizo ni matusi kwa mwalimu wa Kenya.
The government has offered a new allowance, leave allowance, but NAT says it will not settle for less.
Ng'ombe si mkia. Ng'ombe ni mwili wote na mkia pia ni ng'ombe. Sasa hatuwezi kuwa tunapewa allowances na hatujapewa mshahara.
NAT insists the strike is still on, even as the government warned teachers against continuing with the strike.
Jana ilikuwa ni rehearsal, leo tulikuwa tunarekebisha makosa, lakini mgomo proper unaanza Jumatano. Na walimu wote wanaulizwa wakae ngangari zaidi.
Those who do not return, this strike is not protected, and there's going to be consequences according to the law.
NAT says it is open for concrete negotiations, but with no offer on the table, it may be a while before the first term of the school calendar can kick off. Rita Tinina, KTN.
And the International Criminal Court has confirmed that even though Mesha Kiebei, the man found dead in Yala River and in Nandi last week, was not a prosecution witness, he had been offered residence elsewhere but chose to return to Eldoret.
Mesha Kiebei was found murdered and his body badly mutilated about a week after he went missing.
The ICC said today it is willing to assist in any way in the investigation by the Kenyan authorities into his murder.
The ICC spoke as the Director of Public Prosecutions ordered the CID to probe Yebei's death.
Deputy President William Ruto's defense team also reportedly confirmed today that Mesha Kiebei was a witness for the defense side in the case at The Hague.
The victim was an Eldoret-based businessman and politician.
Pathologists are unable to determine what killed Fidel Oding.
The first round of tests have been unsuccessful, and therefore government and private pathologists will embark on a second round that will hopefully give an indication of what exactly caused Fidel's death.
However, doctors did not say when the results of the second round of testing will be released and if it will be released to the public.
The firstborn in former Prime Minister Raila Odinga's house died early Sunday morning in his Karen home.
The family had scheduled public viewing of the body tomorrow afternoon as burial preparations continue.
Fidel Odinga will be buried on Saturday in his father's home in Bondo. Now, as the post-mortem exam results are awaited, Jaramogi Oginga's home in Bondo is a beehive of activity as funeral plans are finalized ahead of the burial this Saturday. Elders there explained to KTN just why Fidel would not be laid to rest in his own compound. Take a look.
The unexpected death of CORD leader Raila Odinga's firstborn son left many in shock. The funeral committee is preparing for what is expected to be a big event on Saturday. In Bondo, men are busy at work. Even though Fidel had built his house at his father's Opoda farm, he will not be buried there.
Pale kuna boma yako kwetu hapa, lazima hiyo boma ndio ukua ni yako, sasa hawezi kutoka boma.
Luo elders here say Fidel did not traditionally move into the new house and thus will instead be buried at his grandfather's Jaramogi Oginga's home in the family graveyard about 10 kilometers from Fidel's home.
Sisi kuko yetu, ukiwa mtoto kama ndugu ya, kama mtoto yako nakufa, lakini bado iko hajakuwa naye sana, yani jaisi naye sana, tunachukuliwa na ndugu yako ingine. Sasa hiyo ndugu ndio taanza kutoa yeye patie pale ya kujenga.
They say the body will spend Friday night at Fidel Opoda's farm before leaving Saturday morning for a funeral service at the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga University of Science and Technology.
Morning we've got overs, more than 10 bulls already are in the offing, over 10 sacks of maize and the others. We are going to have about 5 catering units.
The funeral ceremony is expected to have about 10,000 mourners from across the country with representation from top national government officials. Timothy Otieno, KTN.
It has been more than 48 hours since a 7-story building collapsed in Huruma, and rescue efforts are still underway. The joint rescue team, which has been working delicately to remove the piled rubble, got to the ground floor today, a crucial point of the rescue efforts, as it is believed those still trapped could have been heading to the exit on the lower floor. In the meantime, Nairobi Governor Dr. Evans Kidero is cracking the whip, suspending 18 officials from the Housing and Planning Department. KTN's Edith Kimani now reports.
The air at the Huruma rubble site is getting heavier. Fear, cautious optimism, and the occasional tears have filled this space for nearly 48 hours. But the rescue team is still engaged in a careful operation to save lives.
We have 43 people rescued so far. We have 26 people who are taken to Kenyatta National Hospital. 2 are still admitted. 24 have been discharged as we are speaking.
The families of the 8 people who are still missing are desperately clenching onto hope that their loved ones will make it out alive. The wait has not been easy.
Because of the poor workmanship of the building, the slabs could not be lifted up because the ratio of the cement and the sand was not proper. So we decided to use the 2 excavators which are behind you.
The snail-paced operation on location is, however, in sharp contrast to what is happening beyond the rubble site. Nairobi Governor Dr. Evans Kidero has struck hard and fast, suspending 18 officials from the Housing and Planning Department. The suspensions coming just a day after this promise.
We are looking for the developer, we are looking for the contractor,
And we are even looking for the fundis who are working on this building. We are going to arrest all of them.
As it is, no arrests have been made, but the county government says it knows its target well.
The owner was already a fugitive on the run, isn't it? He started running away on 26th of October, 2014.
Yet there are those who say even with the arrests, little will change in the construction industry.
Why somebody erected the 7 floors and he was not detected and he was given an accommodation certificate, nobody would understand.
The external debates are, however, irrelevant at the site where survivors have come to collect the little they can salvage, even as rescuers immerse themselves in what could be the final hours of the rescue mission. Edith Kimani, KTN.
From Huruma, let's now go to those controversial security laws. If you remember, just about a week ago, the CORD team went to court and sought orders to suspend some clauses in the security laws, which they successfully did. And now the Attorney General, Professor Githu Muigai, has now again moved to the Court of Appeal, appealing the decision by Justice David Odunga to suspend 8 clauses in those controversial laws. The Attorney General has given 14 reasons rather for what he is appealing, for his appeal at that decision, and we are going to look at just 7 which we believe are the most crucial. Now, the first reason that the Attorney General has given is that the High Court had no jurisdiction to suspend those laws. He says that the learned judge erred in law and, in fact, in failing to find that the court had no jurisdiction to suspend legislation at this particular stage. The second reason given by the AG is that there was insufficient evidence to warrant suspension. He says that the judge erred in law and, in fact, again, in failing to appreciate that there was no sufficient evidence on the record to warrant the granting of the prayers of stay or suspension of the law. Let's move on. He says, this is the Attorney General, says that the judge should have waited for proof of unconstitutionality. Now, you know that in court or in law, if a person is found guilty, there is a law, there is a provision which says that you are not guilty. You are innocent until you're proven guilty. Again, in the constitutional law, a law is presumed to be constitutional until there is enough evidence which says that it is unconstitutional. Now, the AG says the judge should have waited until this law or these clauses were proven to be unconstitutional. Next reason, if the process was unconstitutional, why suspend only certain sections? He says the judge contradicted himself because the basis on which these security laws were suspended, the basis in which court went to court was that the whole process in which these laws were passed was unconstitutional. So the reasoning here being that if you're going to suspend some clauses, on the basis of those reasons given by court, then you should have suspended all the clauses, not just some of them. Let's move on. He says that the suspended provisions were not a danger to the Bill of Rights. Remember that the most contentious parts of these laws, some of the most contentious parts were that the laws were infringing on the Bill of Rights, but he says that those that were suspended did not infringe on the Bill of Rights. Now, the AG continues that the judge should have referred the matter to the Chief Justice, Dr. William Mutunga. He says that the learned judge of the High Court erred in law and in failing to refer the matter to the Honorable Chief Justice for the constitution of a bench to hear the applications for conservatory orders of stay or suspension of the law. Right. The very last issue here that the AG brings up is that the orders given breached the doctrine of separation of powers. That is something that we have come across several time and time over again, which is the separation of powers, and this is again between the judiciary and Parliament. He says again, Nancy, that the judge erred in making because he did not again. He gave orders that were deemed to be in a breach of the doctrine of separation of powers. This saga is not about to end anytime soon.
Of course, we continue to keep our eye on that. Thank you, Wilson. Now, let's go back to talking about the teachers' strike, of course, affecting Kenyans across the country. Remember, we're asking you tonight whether you think the government should actually bow to the teachers' demands. I'll just read a quick tweet here from Elijah Mageto, who says, yes, the government should keep their promises. Although, on the other hand, Isaac Musetti says, surely the government has done enough for teachers. No more allowances. Well, as teachers stayed away from their classrooms, most public schools were deserted, with children opting to go back home. However, schools that were lucky enough to have teachers who are not on government payroll managed to conduct their lessons. Take a look.
As the teachers' strike entered its day 2, learning remained paralyzed in most schools. It was the first day of school for secondary schools, and after the Education Cabinet Secretary Jacob Kaimenyi told teachers to report to school, many came hopeful.
Nilidhani kwa ajili last time venye waligoma, walimu wetu hawakwenda mgomo. Sasa nikadhania pia watarudi.
At Jamhuri High School, learning had not kicked off yet and the classrooms were deserted. While some opted to go back home, others took the time to revise on their own.
Nimeonelea tu nikuje shule kwa sababu unajua kwamba walimu wakigoma, sisi na sisi tunagoma. So mimi nimekuja shule. Sikia vile walimu wanasema, lakini principal ametuambia kwamba kama wameoma ni walimu wanagoma, sisi wanafunzi.
For me as a Form 4 student, I'm going to take the responsibility and go to the library services and just read.
At the Ngara Girls High School in Nairobi, the students were seated in class but not a single teacher was in sight. They resorted to learning by themselves. But in Starehe Boys Center in Nairobi, the script was different. Learning is back to normal and students are preparing to go to class. This class is already in session. The school director, Machi Kithiaka, says they are keen to ensure the students are not affected. Teachers employed by the school will continue teaching.
Classes have already begun. We have been in class since yesterday, Monday. So yeah, we're just being issued with books so that now they can enhance what the teachers are teaching us.
Do you feel that the strike has affected you in any way?
The strike,
we're aiming high because that is our motto, and we trust in God and our administration because they are ready to help us.
Given that most of the students affected are from the public institutions, we sought the opinions of parents from Mathare area in Nairobi. Caroline Wamboi, a mother whose 2 children are both out of school, is not happy.
Nasikia uchungu kwa sababu kama mtoto wangu aende shule na mwende huyo. Anashinda huko kama ameparara. Unaona kama anashinda huko kiparara, ananikasirisha. Juu hata nikimwambia time aende aoge, haezi enda kuoga. Ananisumbua akili kabisa.
Just like every other parents across the country, Caroline wants the government and teachers unions to come up with a lasting solution for the strike.
Hiyo ya serikali yetu ni walimu tu ndio wamewafunza. Sasa Kenya ningetaka vizuri ongezewe mshahara ili watoto wetu, ili hata sisi tupungukiwe na uzito ya watoto kukua nyumbani.
As the tug of war between the teachers and the employer continues, the students are caught up in between, and with each day, their fate remains unknown. Fatma Pole, KTN.
It is certainly any parent's hope that this strike issue is going to be resolved sooner than later, so that students stop losing valuable time. Don't you think so?
Absolutely. And of course, you can continue to let us know whether you think that the government should bow to the teachers' demands. Give us your opinions by SMSing us on 22155 or tweeting us at KTN Kenya at Kachungira at Wilson_Mburu.
Let's move to Transmara now, where tension is high along the Kisii-Transmara border in a conflict triggered by an alleged theft of livestock.
That's right. Members of the Maasai and Kisii communities faced off after those from the Kisii side claimed that some youth from the Transmara side crossed over and stole 4 heads of cattle.
Fred Muturi has the details.
An alleged incident of livestock theft has triggered a new wave of tension along the Kisii-Transmara border. The conflict that started 4 days ago has seen property going up in flames, including a sugarcane plantation belonging to 5 farmers estimated to be worth over 5 million shillings. It's alleged that a group of youths crossed the border from Maasai land and took 4 heads of cattle from the Kisii side, triggering night attacks.
Na ni ng'ombe ya maana ya 1,100. Na watu wakati walikuwa wanaanza kufanya msako, tulipata ndani ya miwa mahali ng'ombe ilikuwa imelala, hata imeweka kinyesi.
Security personnel drawn from the General Service Unit, Anti-Stock Theft and administration police were deployed in the area to trace the alleged stolen livestock. But the enraged community engaged the security agents in running battles when they tried to block them from crossing the border.
Kweli kabisa tunaishi na uoga, na sisi kama wakaaji wa Kiango tunasindwa na serikali. Hatuna ama kama hatuna serikali etutambui sisi wenyewe ni serikali.
The heavy presence of General Service Unit officers forced some of the residents to flee their homes for fear of more conflict. The farmer Obadia Mokua lost 6 acres of his sugarcane plantation to fire, and he is now a worried man. Such practices that have undermined security and led to property loss have festered for decades unresolved, and have continued to breed mistrust and animosity between the two communities.
Wasisi tukikuwa Wamasaini, tunaonelea kikao ingekaa tuelewane. Sisi ni watu jamii moja, sisi ni watu jirani.
While the two sides are waging war, the area remains abandoned and business has been paralyzed.
Hata saa hii tunashangaa kwa sababu imefunguliwa leo shule, tuko na mashule mpaka hapa ambayo watoto leo hao kusoma.
Ni bahati mbaya mtu kusema kwamba hata acha kupigana mpaka apate ng'ombe, ama kusema kwamba ajili ya ng'ombe moja watu kadha wafe. Maana tuna sheria, tuna utaratibu katika nchi hii. Ikiwa wewe utapoteza, nafikiri suluhisho sio wewe kwenda kufanya vita ama nini. Kuna sheria.
Cattle theft is common in this borderline, and engaging elders from the two sides in solving the conflict is crucial at the moment. Fred Muturi, KTN, Transmara.
Now, if you remember last night, we brought you a conversation between Aaron Ochieng and the Jubilee government's Mr. Fixit. He's the majority leader in Parliament, Aden Duale. And in that conversation, it was a very interesting conversation because Duale said that he has no personal differences with his counterparts in the opposition.
And well, one of the things that Aaron Ochieng said they would touch on in this part that we'll look at just now is the, should I say, fateful events of December 18th, of course, that conduct in Parliament that had everybody talking. Well, that's what we're going to listen to right now.
Bound to be a very interesting conversation. This is the second part of that interview with Aden Duale.
Thank you so much, Honorable Duale, for finding time to talk to KTN. Let's cross over to the security bill that was acrimoniously passed on the 18th day of December last year. You were on the floor of the House. How did you gauge the performance of the National Assembly that particular day?
That day, there was something which happened, which was, in my opinion, very, very wrong. There was out of disorder. There was a lack of decorum on the part of members of Parliament from both sides. But again, I contribute that to party leader Moses Wetangula, Senator Mudhama, Senator Khalwale, Senator James Orengo. I mean, you cannot come to the Speaker's Gallery. The Speaker's Gallery is the most respected section in terms of all the galleries in the National Assembly or in the Senate. You attend there with even specific dress code. You attend, you go to that gallery with the only people who go to the Speaker's Gallery are invited guests of high standing, foreign dignitaries. The Deputy President sits there. Even diplomats don't sit there. So they went there and they were singing, they were dancing, they were inciting. So my advice on that day is particularly to Honorable Gladys Wanga, Honorable John Bandi, please, anywhere else within your party you can play political violence, but not on the floor of the House. And I hope the committee chaired by the Speaker on Procedure and House Rules Committee must rein in on all sides of the House, and they must discipline those members of Parliament who misbehaved. The security law or the Security Act as of now is like any other bill that came to Parliament. It went through the committee. And the committee is not a committee of Jubilee. In that committee, we have 12 members of the Code Coalition and about 15 members, 16 members of the Jubilee in terms of party strength. So they had a chance. When you are a member of parliament like me, you have a chance to exercise your powers under Article 95 of oversight, of representation on legislation. So it went through the committees. After the committees, I chaired through the two chairs. We chaired a harmonization caucus. And that's why today, Charles Nachaya is saying all the issues I have raised have been dealt with. We thrashed out all the issues raised by the Muslim community. We thrashed out all the issues raised by the Human Rights Commission. When we went there, we have a letter, it's in court, showing the two speakers have concurred. So those who, when court went to this court and said the Senate was bypassed, Article 110, sub-Article 3 says the two speakers must concur. There is a document shows that Honorable and Honorable Muturi signed and said this bill is exclusively to be before the National Assembly.
Judge Odunga has suspended 8 clauses in that particular Security Amendment Act. What is your view on those suspended clauses?
In fact, you know, when I saw court celebrating prominent lawyers like Moses Wetangula, I was shocked. This act has 100+ sections, 100+ sections. The judge dealt with 8 sections. And I'll give a summary of the 8 sections, what they were dealing with. The 8 sections were dealing with number 1, the number of refugees that we can allow in our country. And in fact, before I go to that, the judge never said the 8 sections are unconstitutional. What the judge said was that these 8 sections, there is a prima facie case that they need more interrogation, constitutional interrogations. So he has never said the 8 sections are unconstitutional. Number 2, the Court Coalition took 30 sections. So out of their 30 sections, in fact, it is only 3 which the judge has suspended. The other 5 are from the Kenya Human Rights Commission. And my parting shot, if you ask me, is that the opposition, the Court Coalition, have failed their supporters. They should fight for the country. They should offer alternative leadership on the floor of the Senate and the floor of the National Assembly, because that is why 133 members of the Court Coalition have their mandate from the people to do legislation, to do oversight, to do representation. You know, when I see the opposition MPs sitting in court, no, it's for the ordinary people to sit in court. Their place in Kenya is to sit in the chambers and in the committees.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dwale, for finding time to talk to us. Have a happy New Year 2015.
Asante sana.
Consumers have been urged to be just a little bit more patient before they can start paying cheaper prices for fuel. In an exclusive interview with KTN's Abby Agina, the chairman of the Petroleum Institute of East Africa, Polycarp Igade, says that despite the 30% drop in global oil prices, it will take a couple of months before the price adjustments take effect in the country. He did, however, hint that better days were ahead for consumers and manufacturers.
A lot has been happening on the oil front, and now that global oil prices have been falling by nearly a half, Kenyan consumers are asking, when will they get to feel this impact when they go to the fuel stations?
Thank you for that question. So when crude oil falls 50%, I think it's overestimating the expectation to expect that prices at the fuel pump will drop 50%. Mm-hmm. I think what we have seen in Kenya is a 40% drop in crude oil price and actually a 15, close to 20% drop
in fuel pump price. If you look at the pump prices right now, a litre is retailing at about 102 shillings. And late last year it was retailing at about 108, around 110 there. People were hoping for a drop in the range of about 20 shillings. When are we likely to see this? Actually, the price of fuel in August was 117 a litre. Yeah. Today it's 102. That is a 14.7% drop. If you are going to reduce costs, if people are going to see a further drop, our request will be to government to see whether it can live with less taxes. But I would not go that way, because taxation is good because it's giving us electricity, health, education. Teachers want more money. So I think when you fuel today, when you fuel 100 shillings into your car, 102, you should remember that 29 shillings goes straight to the government. Then 7 shillings and 4, which goes to the petrol station dealer and the oil marketer, that money is further taxed later on out of our profits as corporate taxation. So I think we have one of the best pricing formulas for fuel. And it's a fact today, I can tell you, as chairman of PIA, that the Kenyan consumer buys a litre of fuel cheaper than South Africa, cheaper than India, cheaper than the UK, and cheaper than very many other geographies. Going into the future, we shall continue to enjoy the lower prices. And even we in oil marketing, as unbelievable as it may sound, we are celebrating the low prices because we are seeing consumers spending a lot more. We are getting more volumes because people are driving a lot more. If you look at the average Kenyan, they know global oil prices are falling and they feel that they're getting a raw deal at the end of the day. Yeah. I think the comfort I like to give the average Kenyan is a Swahili saying, chips sio waru. You know, potatoes are not chips. You have to eat chips. Well, crude oil is a potato, if you like. Chips is a processed product. We will come to that conclusion. But I think it's fantastic for especially manufacturing, because we are starting to see inflation go down. So your salary and my salary is today enabled by savings. If you look from August, the price has dropped close to 170 to 102, it's almost 15 shillings. Yeah. I have 15 shillings more to spend on something else, or on another alternative. And I think for the first time we have seen the biggest move of local tourism into local Kenyans going into tourism destinations over the Christmas period. I think they were using some of the savings from fuel to do that. So, and I would like to encourage government to use this time when prices are coming down to find some shillings there to stabilize and create a stabilization fund, because as prices come down, remember, prices will still go up. Sure. Now, when they start going up, there'll be a lot of hue and cry. And I think very many other countries around Africa, they cushion the consumer by creating a stabilization fund. And that is created in an environment when prices are coming down. And perhaps our policymakers need to think about creating a stabilization fund, so when the prices swing back, we are able to protect the consumer. But let's all celebrate the low prices. It's good for the economy.
Well, at least there's something to celebrate. Now, all is not well at Wells Fargo. Over 50 workers at Wells Fargo, Kenya, a security firm specializing in the financial sector, are on a go-slow. The workers from Nairobi have today paralyzed operations at their headquarters here in the city. They demand better pay and working conditions, which they say have been wanting for the last 2 years. KTN's Charles Gitonga has the details.
9 a.m. in Nairobi's South Sea area, operations at Wells Fargo are at a standstill. Outside the gate, over 50 people donning the firm's uniforms parade the walkway, a sign that all was not well. Workers in the technical department of the company, which specializes in security and courier services to over 80% of Kenyan banks, are on strike, and the issues are vast.
They are trying to match where I live, the car I drive, where I go during the weekends, where I go after job. In reference na ile mshahara napata hapa. Mtu akivutwa alipwi, ukigonjeka ulipwi, ukianguka ulipwi, ukiwa na issue ulipwi, kila kitu ulipwi.
The genesis of these issues date back to 2 years. The workers allege that the firm's management has treated their concerns casually, and it was time for them to take their stand. Their representative body, the Kenya Union of Commercial, Food and Allied Workers, they claim, seems to be colluding with the firm's management to overlook their demands.
Lakini whenever you have issues, whenever we go there, unakuta mwenye yako huko is from the charge department. He has been pocketed.
Efforts by KTN to seek answers over the allegations were at first met with some resistance, but we forged on.
I know I'm on camera, I don't want to talk so much.
This is an internal matter, and we have not exhausted the machinery that
is provided for within the labor laws.
Among the demands the workers want met include a basic salary of at least 45,000 shillings from the current average of 22,000 shillings per month. They are also demanding for better travel allowances, terming the current 1,080 shillings per trip allowance as being below average market rates. This strike is expected to have an impact on various banks across Nairobi, who depend on Wells Fargo for security and safety installations in their business premises. The actual loss accruing from the go-slow is yet to be ascertained. The firm remains non-committal on whether they will heed to the demands being fronted by the striking employees. Charles Gitonga, KTN.
Next in business, failure in Parliament to approve pending legislation could see President Uhuru Kenyatta handpick the next central bank governor, a move that could spark a major row in corporate Kenya. The draft CBK bill is yet to be approved by the cabinet and later tabled in Parliament, which is on recess until mid-February, giving President Kenyatta the leeway to appoint Professor Ndungu's successor. The outgoing governor, Professor Njuguna Ndungu, whose term expires in 2 months' time, did oversee key milestones in the financial services sector, such as mobile banking, among other key developments. Proposed laws require competitive recruitment for a CBK governor to shield the crucial institution from political interference and ensure that only the most competent candidates are selected. Professor Ndungu completes his second 4-year term at the helm of the lender on March 4th this year. The proposed law provides that the president will pick the governor from 3 candidates proposed by CBK directors. Now let's take a look at how your money works for you in this financial report. That's right. Great to have you participating in our bulletin tonight. Our sign language interpreter, doing a fantastic job as always, is William Silla, and I am Nancy Kachungira.
My name is Wilson Buru. Enjoy the rest of your viewing. Good night.
Good night.